For those who think that Florida meme's a joke, where like it's super sunny on one side and then it's, you know, black on the other. Boom. Sunny. Death. Alright, so today we're just going to be doing a little talking about how to choose line sizes. Braid more specifically. The reason being is because I get a lot of questions about what pound braid to be using on whatever combos, and I have here people using 2500s and having 40-pound braid on it. And there's a couple reasons why that's not really something you want to do. You got to look at what your reel is capable of. It doesn't necessarily mean what is written on the reel. You got to look at the drag, and you got to look at, honestly, whether the gears can handle it. There's certain reels that are inexpensive. It doesn't matter what line you have on it. The chances of that reel breaking under any sort of strain, what are you doing? Or it doesn't matter. They're going to break if you put strain on them. There's a couple ways to fix this. There's a certain amount of money you need to spend, basically, in order for this not to be an issue. And as much as it sucks, it is one of those things where you have to jump through. Around $100, there are a lot of great options nowadays. In Daiwa, there's the Fuego and the BG. In Shimano, there's the Nasky. In Fenor, there's the Lethal. And Penn, there is the Battle. So basically, many different brands have many different reels. They can do roughly the same thing. And before you decide what line you put on it, you got to know what you're fishing for and what reel to get in the first place. So, are you structure fishing? Do you want this reel to be for snook, or do you want it to be for trout? Are you going to be flats fishing with it? Are you those are very important things. Are you going to go grouper fishing with it around bridges? That's the very important thing to ask. We're going to start off with flats fishing. You don't want a big reel. 3,000 is basically as big as you want to go. 2,500, even 1,000 sizes are fine. The reason being is because you're using light line. A 1,000 size reel can still hold a few hundred yards of 8-pound braid. That's really, I mean, unless you're targeting areas that are going to have some oyster beds, you might want to pick it up a little bit. But if you're sight fishing in way open water and you're going to let that fish run, put some 8-pound on there. You're fine. 10-pound, same sort of thing. Maybe if you run into a few barnacles here and there, you know, or oyster beds, you put some 10-pound on there. 15 is really as high as I would suggest for flats. You can still cast a mile with it. You can put it on a 2,500 and still get a good amount of line on there. And it's the drags on those reels are probably not going to be that high. You don't need 15 or anything over 15. You're losing a lot of line castability. You're losing a lot of sensitivity, and it's a little bit more visible. So if you're flats fishing, I would go from 8 to 15. That's it, and the reel no bigger than about a 2,500, maybe a 3,000 if you're targeting like big fish on the flats. You know, if you're gonna target like a big black drum or big bull redfish, 3,000, yeah, I can see that. But if there's no structure near you, which most flats don't really have much of, you don't really need anything bigger than that. The next step up is going to be your medium action with a little bit of structure. You know, you're fishing on a seawall, you're fishing on a bridge, you're fishing mangroves, you're fishing docks, you're fishing structure-oriented areas. This changes a little bit because, one, you got to beef up your stuff a little bit. You don't have to be crazy, you know. A 3,000 is kind of the lightest I'd go in something like this, is like right at that. So a 3,000 would be good if you want to flats fish or if you want to structure fish a little bit. 15 pounds is the minimum I'll go for structure, and I don't even like doing that. Docks and, you know, mangroves, I mean. You can get away with it, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of instances where people catch fish otherwise, but you're not going to get that consistency you would out of 20. 20 is the recommended minimum I use when I structure fish, and that's actually just what I use. One, most of the fish you're dealing with are not going to break 20-pound braid by pulling on it. Now, you're not going to be deadlocking your drag, though. At least you shouldn't. You should have a little bit to work with. 20-pound braid is pretty much plenty for those situations, but I wouldn't say no to going up to 30 and 40, depending on the size of your reel. When it comes to structure fishing, if you're mangroves, for instance, 20-pound, pretty great. You don't really need more than that. Docks, if you're targeting large snook or you're running into large snook a lot, I would probably go with 20 to 30, sometimes up to 40, but I don't like going any bigger than a 5,000 reel, and a 5,000 is pushing it because it depends on the brand. A 4,000 Fuego, for instance, is more than ideal. A 5,000 Saragossa, you can, depends on the type of fish, but usually that's a little too big. So that 3,000 to 4,000 reel size is usually fine. Same thing if you're wanting to cast over and over and over again with a lure and you're fishing near a bridge or something like that, or you're fishing in a mangrove. A 3,000 or 4,000, you really don't want to go much bigger than that because you're going to tire yourself out. So 3,000 to 4,000 reel and 20 to 40 pound braid, depending on if you're strictly going to be fishing that cover, that structure, and pulling fish out, or if you're just, every once in a while going, snook fishing, or you're on a flat and then there's some mangroves near it. So just choose accordingly with that. Some people will give you different advice. That's just how I feel about it. The next thing would be heavy structure fishing, and that's going to be like pulling big snook off of bridges or pulling grouper off of bridges and stuff like that. Tarpon, all that kind of stuff. You want something bigger. You want a heavier rod. You want a bigger reel. So like a 5,000 is a good size reel to start with. I tend to like a 6,000. 6,000 pretty much all the way across the board is great. 6,000 Saragossa. Now, slammers are labeled different, so 5,500 slammer would be perfect for this. Most of those reels in that size will be fine. I like to use a minimum of 40 pound braid. Now, some people like lighter stuff. They think it's more of a challenge. I like to use 40 pound braid. Not only do I like using 40 pound braid, I'll go up to, I'll use usually 40 to 50 pound. Any higher than that, most of your reels aren't designed to, they don't have that drag. Most of the reels will not have that drag. There's not too much of a reason to use that besides palming it. But again, you're not going to be able to hold on to 65 pounds of pressure. It's just not going to happen, especially palming it. People don't realize how much pressure that truly is, especially on a spinner. Most of the gears on these reels that people are using won't be able to handle it. So with that being said, I have 40 pound on my 6,000 Saragossa, and I'll use heavier leader for sure. I'll use 60 and 80, but the main line itself, 40 to 50 pounds is usually plenty. Whether you're tarpon, snook, grouper, whatever it be, you're not going to break off because you're putting too much pressure. Especially if you got it buttoned down, it's not going to break due to the pressure. Your reel does not have that much drag. So quick overview. Flats, primarily only flats, 8 to 15 pounds at most. Flat slash a little bit of structure, 15 to 20. Structure, 20 to 40. Heavy structure, 40 to 50. And that's pretty much how I choose that. I can go into a little bit more, a lot more detail. If you want me to be very specific on what types of setups I would use for certain situations, let me know in the comments below, because I'll do a video. I can do a video series specifically on what tactics and what tackle I will use in an exact situation, so you guys have the full in-depth, because I'm just glancing over it this time, kind of testing the water, see what you guys want to see. And I thought I'd talk about this a little bit. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, thanks for all that good stuff. And I really appreciate all the support. You know, everything keeps on going up. My subscriptions, the likes per video, you guys are awesome. I don't think I've had a dislike on my video, knock on wood, since like 5 or 6 videos ago. I really appreciate that. You know, it really means a lot to me. So, all right, well, you'll have a good one.